I said a hip hop, a hippie to the hip hop. You don't stop. I rock it to the bang bang boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie the beat. And welcome once again to a Silent Ovation, episode number 5. I got through 1 to 4. I still can't believe it. But yeah, it's going. It's moving like a train. And we are sponsored by Ovation English, the world's first language learning program based on the performing arts. Yes, I said based on the performing arts. What does that mean? Well, at Ovation English, we teach through music, acting, and movements, and any type of performance that you are interested in. So it makes it actual fun learning. So, episode 5. I think I want to talk a little bit about my brother and the influence that he had on me. But first, just a recap. So I talked about just an overall, the skeleton of my life. And then talking about my father and how, what a strange situation I was in. Wasn't pleasant, but things that I did learn were, survival. How to get out of the house without, getting in trouble. So, looking back at those times living with him, they weren't. There was nothing really nice about it. I can't really think of any good time, but I'm so thankful because I learned, true life lessons, and I didn't use it as an excuse. So I am thankful for those times. I will never regret or ever feel like they've done something to me. Uh, Opposite sides is my mother, where it was like a party all the time, doing whatever I wanted, and she was my mother, but she wasn't a parent, and if you can understand that, you get it. There wasn't really any structure in the house. There weren't any rules. If I didn't brush my teeth, I didn't brush my teeth. That was it. So, but learning from her, or learning what I had to do to survive with her, yes, it was fun. It wasn't abusive. It wasn't anything like that. But I had to, learn how to cook. I had to learn how to clean. I had to learn, how to, get myself to school and, do all these things, So it's not what an average kid would go through, but I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it. Do I wish I had a more structured mother that told me, how to wipe my ass and, basic things like that, check, hey, did you do your homework? Or hey, Yeah, but as I said, with my father, I wouldn't take it back, because I know now with the lessons I've learned from both of them, it's just, I couldn't get that education anywhere else, So then there's my brother. He's 5 years older than me. His name is Michael. And like a typical older brother, I don't know, maybe in the 80s, he was a dick. He was a dick, always just, it's just always, there was always something. For example, I'd go take a nice hot shower in the winter and, or a warm shower, I'm, really, getting ready, washing my hair, and then here comes a bucket of ice water and I'm, or, I'm preparing my meal and maybe I just go and get something out of my room. I come back, I go eat my food and it's filled with salt. Just ruined, things like that. Locking me in the closet, I'm freaking out. Get me out of here. And all I hear is on the other side, typical prick, older brother. But, through all that, like he would do these things during the day and, just be a total, SOB. But at night, it's just he turned into like this entertainer and he made me laugh. So he's probably the only person that could ever really make me like cry laughing, He's just so silly and so funny, and he just loved to entertain me, and I would always laugh, and he, so it's like I would have this love-hate relationship with him, And just to describe, like, I'm an artist, he's not. He's like a business guy. I have all these points and he's square. He lives his life very safe. And that's great. I mean, I think his main goal in life was to have a family, because he was, yeah, I found out later in life that, the divorce of my mother and father really affected him. He was 10, I was 5. I didn't have a friggin' clue what was going on. But I guess at 10, yeah, you do. And it affected him, and he always wanted that family structure. And, that's why I'd always hear him yell at my mother, "Why can't you be like Rob McDaniel's mother? She makes brownies and she's always attentive." And I'd be like yelling at him, like, "Dude, don't shut up. Don't ruin a good thing. Like we're partying. But, he really needed that. That's what he desired in life. So he did. I mean, he ended up having a family and having 4 amazing children who are successful in their own rights. But we don't have a lot to talk about, when we get together. The main thing we talk about are the New York Giants, because it's just the one thing that him and I really connected with, and I think that's why I love the New York Giants. It's like I'm not really even into football as much. Don't even watch them that much, but they just mean so much to me because him and I watching them, especially like the Super Bowls, in '86 and '90, it was just so special. And in those times, we didn't have special times. So just because of the environment we were in, so that was really special. But other than that, we really don't talk about much. I know, we love each other, but it's just not really spoken. So, but the one things I do remember about him, and I will never forget, and I will always just cherish, is, in my teens when I was really getting heavy into stupid stuff, and just staying out for days, 14, 15, and just partying. 14, 15s, like that's just he was the only one that actually came to a friend's house one night, to get me out and just be like, hey, and my mother's in the background like, "I told him not to come. I told him just, leave him alone, and my brother's like, "He's, out of his mind. Look at him." And I was. Did I listen to him? No. Was I pissed off at him? Yeah. But, I did realize, it did give me that one thing that just kept in the back of my mind. And especially later in life, I realized, wow, if he didn't do that, I would have been fucked. I mean, I would have been really screwed. So that's why I think at a time when I was done with high school, I kind of said, all this nonsense, I got to get rid of this. This is stupid, because I was so young. I was the only one really doing it in my class, nobody really knew, and I was like, that's why another reason, like I was voted most likely to go to rehab. I mean, and of course. So once, graduation started and people started going to college, they were all getting into it, and I was like, been there, done that, and I kind of really just cleaned house and just said, let me just focus on what I need to focus on. Because this was that pulling, I just always had that pulling and just said, okay, I got to figure it out. So his, just those little acts of, the few times where he came to get me, it was just like, okay, because he was the only influence I had. I can't say I hated, but I was deathly afraid of my father. I had no really relationship with him, no love, no nothing. Couldn't look up to him, couldn't look up to anything. My mother was cool, but I couldn't look up to her, so he was somebody I did. And, like any sport that he did, I did, like he did football. And I was like, okay, I got to play football, And what sucked is I did like Sunnysiders, which is like Pee Wee League, and I was fat, I was heavy. And I'd go to every practice, but the games, there was a weight limit, and I never played the games, It sucked, but I went through that whole process because he did, And then, he started wrestling, and I did wrestling. He did baseball, I did baseball, And I didn't really enjoy sports at that time. I really didn't. Because I wasn't really, I was big and I was strong at the time, and I am athletic. But I really wasn't that wasn't my thing, but I just did it because I said, okay, hey, if my brother's doing it, then I gotta do it. And I was okay. I was okay at them, but I wasn't. I didn't have that real killer instinct and to win or But man, am I so glad because that's why I kept in shape my whole life. Was it just those sports taught me discipline, and to always take care of yourself because I mean I was doing football and you're working out during football season. Then right after football you got wrestling and then that's even worse, because you're sucking weight or doing whatever and wrestling practice is rough. And then there's baseball or track or whatever else was next, and it was great because it just kept me. I would have gotten in a lot more trouble, I'm sure. So have there, even though he was a dick, and I understand now he was just venting his frustrations, and I was there. I just had to be the one, and I understand that, that's why I would never ever, I never, would ever blame him or be really mad at him. I just knew that it was the time, and also look, getting that crap on me, I learned a lot. Like always, hey, look around my shoulder. Look, is there going to be a bucket of water coming out after me? Check my drink. Is there anything there? Um, that's why I always eat standing up because I got to eat fast. It's just that thing. Um, but I mean, what a great. Was I look back at it now and what a really amazing guy he was, especially he had to go through 5 more years of that crap than me, and he was old enough to really see it and be a part of all that stuff and really understand that your mother just fucking abandoned us, and that's tough. That's tough. So with all these things, people hurt you, but there's always a reason why. So when people hurt you, just kind of say why. Why is he doing? Why is she doing this? What's the reason? Is there something behind it? And once you see that reason, there's just no way of getting mad. You just can't get mad. Maybe disappointed, but you just can't get mad. And if just forgive and forget, and move on. There's bigger things in the world. So. My family life was, and I don't really talk about my family life when I meet people because there's not much to say. And I can really talk about my family in 3 episodes because that's really it. That's not much left. Not much there. There's not much history. I don't know much about my family on either side. I just know that there was a lot of tragedy, and sadness on both sides. So it wasn't really an important thing, family for me, until I actually had my own kids, and moving to Ecuador with them because, in the States, our life is about work. Unfortunately, we've forgotten all of our values. And we just want to work and consume and work and consume and throw away, and it's just a dangerous cycle. But when I moved to Ecuador, it was a real eye opener, especially obviously marrying an Ecuadorian who had, core values, as an Ecuadorian, and family is everything. And I did and that's pretty much one of the reasons why I was with her. I felt like, hey, I know nothing of this family stuff, so maybe it's time I learn. And I felt like it would be better if I learned from somebody who wasn't from my country, who didn't have those same work values. So I did. I learned a lot. I learned, that when your kid is sick, don't just give them Excedrin. Like, hey, just check everything. Always be careful. Always think, 2 steps ahead. And I learned a lot. I learned things that I was like, shit, I should have. I mean, these are basic things, and I'd always be told that, hey, why don't you know this? It's like, I don't know. It's like, this is kind of private, but just to give you an example, like, when I had kids, especially my son, and, it was time for him to finally go, take a poop in the toilet and wipe, I'm like showing him how to wipe. I'm going forward, down, and out, And I had told his mother, and she was like, "What? You don't do that. You wipe from the back. Everybody knows." I'm like, "Huh?" I'm like, "You wipe from the back. Who taught you?" I said, I don't know. I guess I figured it out. I don't know. She's like, "No, you have to wipe from the back." I really was, and then I looked it up on Google. I'm like, come on, there's no right way or wrong way to wipe your ass, But sure as shit, that's literally sure as shit. That's how you do it from the back. So that was a big, a lot of things that I should have known. I should have learned just basic, brush your teeth twice a day, Jesus, I don't ever remember brushing my teeth as a kid, which is why most of my teeth, I have a lot of teeth that have fallen out and had to be taken out, from that. So having a family, having children really changed my life. I mean, it changed my life where I learned how to be a human being. Really, I felt like I was learning how to be a human being because I was living on some planet that was not, the norm, So it was really eye-opening, and I really got into it. Like I would always wake up early and make my kids breakfast before school, because if I didn't do that myself, I would have, I didn't eat. So I was like, Mike, I don't want my kids to go through this crap. I don't want them to, yes, I want them to learn how to cook, obviously, yes, to be able to be self-sufficient. But when they're kids, you want to just have them wake up and, you give them their food so they think about their day and that's it, So I did that, and I did. I learned a lot from my ex-wife. She taught me a lot, and there, about family and about children and taking care. Because she took great care of them. I mean, really. I mean, I was so lucky to have her as their mother because they were just so well taken care of. So no matter what happens in family, if family breaks up or if, you just have to see the great things about it, and that's what I'm trying to do. It's been very hard because yes, we did get divorced, my ex-wife, after 17 years, and it wasn't a pretty one, and it's just something that I'm dealing with now and learning how to live my life brand new, but I can look back at, of course, if you're married, it's not easy. Marriage isn't easy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of, give and take. And I don't think either of us, as far as me and my ex, were willing to give, we're very stubborn people. Two stubborn people, two negatives don't make a positive. So it was hard, but I learned so much, man. I mean, just moving to another country in South America, being accepted by a culture, because there's one thing to visit another country, but another one to adapt and live. And I had to adapt to a culture that was just so opposite of mine. In New York, I mean, it was just so opposite, like, you go to a store, you go to a deli in New York, and they're like, "Hey, what do you want? Okay, what do you got it? Okay, now go, move, next, And here, in Ecuador, you go to a store, and the woman's like having a 5-minute conversation with one of, the next person in line, and you're like, when I first got here, I was like, come on, what the fuck, and then it's like you realize, where do I gotta go? Where am I gonna go? Well, so what? I listen to the conversation. It's funny. They're laughing, so whatever. And it's very eye-opening when you move to another country. It's really, really eye-opening. it gives you a lot of perspective on who you are, what your culture is, of course, because I learned a lot about the American culture from living in Ecuador. That's where I learned. It's just all we do is work. That's all we do is work, 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 work. You know, right before I left for Ecuador to move, I was working with this amazing guy named Johnny Forcina. I love you, Johnny, if you ever hear this. He was based out of Pleasantville, and and I was telling him, like, dude, I think I'm gonna move. I think I'm gonna move. And he was like, looked at me and he goes, you know what? See this really big house I got? It's beautiful, right? He goes, see those nice cars I got in the driveway? Sweet, right? That boat I got on the river? Man, it's beaut, right? See my wife and kids? She's hot, right? My kids are beautiful, right? He goes, you know how much time I actually spend in that house? Not much. I'm always working. See those nice luxury cars? You know how many times I drive them? Maybe once a month if I have the time, because I'm always in my work car. See that boat? My friends use it more than I do. And because I just don't want it to, I want it to be used. So my friends use it. See that wife and my kids? Yeah. We fight all the time because I'm never home. My kids barely know my name. So if you want to go and find a new way of life, go right ahead. And I took it. That was my confirmation. I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So, and at the time I had Justin James Woodworking. I had my own woodworking company, and I was doing really well. I was chosen 2 years in a row on Angie's List, best worker or best work on Angie's List at the time, 2007, 2008, and I was just doing it by myself. But the economic time was very tough. I couldn't even afford to have help, so I did everything. I got the bid, I designed it, drew it up myself by hand, fabricated, installed, cleaned up, and then collected the money. Did everything myself, and it broke every bone in my body, not literally, but it was really tough. And that's why I had another one of those times where I went to my shop at the time in Elmsford, and I just broke down crying. I said, I called my ex-wife at the time, and it was once again like the old Tony, Italian guy. I can't. She's like, what are you saying? What's going on? I'm like, just let's go to Ecuador. Let's go. And that was it. Dropped everything. Dropped my business. Dropped everything, and left. And also I didn't want my kids, as I said, I didn't want my kids growing up in Yonkers, and that's where we're living, because that's where we could afford. So I just thought it was the best thing for me, and my family, and my kids, and it was. But, I learned, Ecuador really taught me about family, and what it really means. And also, that old saying, you never know what you got till it's gone, that's another thing, I think a lot of things I took for granted in my marriage and my children, and then, once you're not a part of that, you realize, okay, yeah, you made mistakes. And, it's very hard to swallow those mistakes, they're not terrible, but, I could have just been better, more attentive, but I'm a dreamer, I'm an artist. I get into my projects and I just lose myself, and that's a hard thing, if you're an artist, you know what I'm talking about. And you have to remember that there's a whole lot of people that are, counting on your time. Okay, not just your, what you produce, but on your time and your heart. So, that's why, especially doing this podcast, I was thinking about what am I going to say today, and I said, okay, I'm going to talk about my brother, and then I just, you go to family, and then, because you realize. And, you know, as I said, my family situation was not ideal at all. But man, it gave me the opening to learn what family was, because I didn't have it. So it gave me that thing of, hey, I kind of want to know what this is all about now. In my teens and 20s, I was just playing. I was an artist, man. I was a musician. I was just, I wanted to be the biggest star there was. That didn't happen, but I got pretty close, which is awesome, you know. But, I didn't care about that. But once I found the person that I was going to marry and have children with, it all changed. And yeah, if I kept being a musician, I probably would have done more things. But I don't think I've ever would have experienced what true love was. That's for sure. And that's what my children definitely gave to me, was the understanding of what true love was. Not only, what I was feeling, but what they were feeling towards me. You really understand that you are loved by these little beings. They look at you as, supreme beings, and they love you. And I think a lot of times I definitely took that for granted as times too, because I just didn't recognize it as, at first. And these are things that's you learn. You have to learn through life. I mean, I'm 50 now. I just turned 50. And I mean, the things that I've learned in these past 2 years, holy moly. I mean, holy moly. I could it's just amazing what life gives you. When life gives you sour grapes, you figure out how to make beautiful wine, but you got to smash it a long time. You got to just smash those grapes, those nasty grapes, until that magic comes out, and that's what it is. And that's really what being an artist is as well. You have your vision, which usually how it starts. You get a vision and you just smash it. You go jump in the fire and you just start smashing, and it's going to be terrible at first. But you just keep smashing and smashing and smashing and smashing and smashing until you start to get that beautiful flavor. And once you get a taste of that flavor, okay, the good stuff's coming, and you just go and go and go. And that's what life is, and that's what it brings you. And I've been very fortunate in another way in life where, since I had to learn everything on my own, I was never really taught real structure and how to really learn certain things. I learned everything on my own. So everything. When you learn on your own, you're always going to make mistakes. There's always that's part of the process of learning on your own. If you're a scholar, you can read a book and really understand each part, and then you can go bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. But when you're jumping in the fire, you just have to start, and then ooh, screwed up. Okay, can't do that again. Blah, 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 good. You get to level 3, level 4, and boom, ooh, you screwed up. Oh, you got to start over. And it hurts a lot. So that's what life is for me. It's just failing. Like, I've become a professional failer. Not failure, but a professional failer. Because that's what I do. I know how to fail and get back up. That's my gift, is that I can suffer through large amount of pain and suffering and just bottomless pits, but I always find a way to get back up. I used to tell my students, and that's the way to life is. You have to know how to get back up, and I always relate that to Rocky Balboa, the first one. This is a guy who just had the biggest heart in the world, and he was no match for the champion. But his heart overcame, and he was getting his, he just get knocked down. But every time he got knocked down, he got back up. So after a while, the champion was like, dude, I'm giving this guy everything. I mean, look at him. He's a bloody mess, and he keeps getting up. What the, and that's how life is. And And that's what family is as well. You know, you have to keep fighting. You have to keep fighting for them. You know, and that's what I'm doing now. You know, I'm fighting for them. You know, as many times as I get knocked down, I'm going to keep fighting for my family, no matter what, no matter my situation, what situation, because even if I don't win, I want them to know that I took it all. I took it all. Wasn't afraid. Took it all. So it's this has been really awesome talking about my family. You know, never really done it in depth like this before, and it's pretty freeing. You know, so if you have these things inside of you, man, just get a microphone. That's all you need, man. Just get a microphone, start speaking into it, you know? Because especially if you're an artist or a performer, I mean, this is natural for me. You know, making like TikToks and Instagram, I'm not really, that's not natural for me. But this, just speaking as myself, yes. I feel very comfortable in this, and I'm very glad that I tried this. I'm very glad that I jumped in the fire on this one, because I had been obsessing about this for a while. So, family is super important. It's very, very, very important because they are your support. You know, they are everything. So you really gotta, you know, value. And if you don't have a great family, make one. Find one. You don't have to be born into it. You don't. You know, as artists, we're a creative family. You know, that's my job, is to develop artists and you know, make them see their potential. And then once they do, they're with me forever, even though they go on their own. But you know, they know that, hey, this guy really helped me become who I am. And even my students. I just had a student today call me. You know, I haven't heard from her in years and years and years. You know, and you're my favorite teacher. You know, I'm like, awesome. Like, that's awesome that you can still remember that. So so yeah, so this is the final part of my family, and now I'm going to be the next, you know, next few chapters are going to be talking about the talents. You know, the talents and how it all came together to make Ovation English. Because that's really the goal here, is to get all this crap out of me so that I can really get to the goal, which is my art. My art is Ovation English. You know, people are my canvas. You know, they come to me as a blank canvas, and I just help them find the right colors to put on them. And the beautiful thing about my art is that it walks around and talks. You know, that's what I love about it. So that's the main goal. So stick around, okay? It's going to get a whole lot different. I don't know if it's going to be better, because I've never done this before, but it's definitely going to be different and more interesting and more creative, okay? So thank you once again for listening. This is a Silent Ovation. My name is Justin McLaughlin, and we are sponsored by Ovation English, the world's first language learning program based on the performing arts. Spirit fingers. I just love doing that. I love the spirit fingers. All right, everybody. Goodbye.